It's when children work for like no pay. I think.
Child labor is when companies use children in order to make their products.
Child labor is the unethical use of children to make products for a cheaper price than you would for grown people.
Yes, I am.
Yes, all the time.
Yes.
No, I did not know that.
No, I didn't know.
I didn't realize that, actually.
Throughout historical and sociological documentation of early Indian civilization, child labor has always existed, specifically in the agricultural sector. Children and their parents used to work together in the farms. Although the farm work was hard and tiring, it did not lead to a worsening of future prospects. Schooling was not available in most villages, and most of the jobs in these villages were farm-related labor, in which this work was served as training for the future of children who live in villages. Large exploitation of children in India began with the arrival of the British. The new industrialists started hiring children who were forced to work in the most inhumane conditions such as bad air quality, feces-infested environment, and unsafe equipment. From the mid-19th to mid-20th century, people of India aimed not merely at achieving political independence from the British rule, but resurrecting the debilitated, sunken society of India with the help of leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Raja Ram Mohan Rai, who contributed to their time to inculcate social concern for the citizens of tomorrow, children in the Indian Constitution. Throughout historical and sociological documentation of early Indian civilization, child labor has always existed, specifically in the agricultural sector. Children and their parents used to work together in the farms. Although the farm work was hard and tiring, it did not lead to a worsening of future prospects. Schooling was not available in most villages, and most of the jobs in these villages were farm-related labor, in which this work was served as training for the future of children who live in villages. The first initiation of social action towards this issue was the Children Act of 1933. The Employment of Children Act was revised by the Indian government almost every decade, with raising the age of child can work higher and higher. The Employment of Children Act of 1951 increased the age requirement a child can work from 12 to 14 years to 15 to 17 years old, especially working for railways.
More often than not, these young workers are forced to get jobs in order to help their families out. In a survey of 300 million Indians, 73% of the population lives in villages. Less than 5% of that number can pay for their own taxes, and only 10% have jobs with a stable salary. That's how prevalent poverty is in India. It's not really about whether or not a single person wants to do it or not, but rather it is for the greater good of the family. Thus, when people approach these impoverished families promising great conditions and wages in exchange for the labor of their kids, they feel compelled to accept. Rahama was a 14-year-old girl working and living at Sulachana Cotton Mills, India, who committed suicide on March 9, 2014 by ingesting nail polish. Her close friends said that she was tired of living in horrible conditions and working extensive hours. She was promised good food, decent accommodation, the chance to study while working, 8 hours of work a day, weekly holidays, and a total payment at the end of 3 years. Since her life at the factory was far from that, she felt that the only way to escape her misery was suicide. The Tirupur People's Forum argued that the Sulachana Cotton Mills should compensate Rahama's family, but instead the cotton mill claimed that she was 17 when she was working, and therefore her decision to suicide was all her fault because they accommodated everything to their fullest ability. So the companies who pay for these warehouses are at fault, aren't they? In the big picture, it's the consumer's fault. Supply and demand is the oil to the wheels of these factories. If consumers didn't want these products, the vast amount of workers and labor would not be needed. However, it is not to say that these companies that employ these manufacturers are not entirely at fault. Realize that these huge companies have multiple branches to even manufacturing. That means that the further they branch out, the harder it is for management to really know what's going on at the lower levels. This allows companies to sign subcontracts with these warehouses without ever letting the brand know. A few brands that contract in India are Zara, Walmart, H&M, JCPenney, and Gap.
Yeah, it has changed. I probably won't shop there anymore. I didn't know that until now. So.
I definitely do. I think that like it'll kind of like make me think twice about shopping there, and also it'll kind of like prevent me from contributing to the company.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. That makes me a lot less compelled to buy products from those brands because I don't know. I really don't agree with that. I didn't honestly think that like companies were even allowed to use that. I thought that was pretty illegal, but yeah, that just sucks.
So how can you help? The first thing you can do is that you could do your research and find out which brands use child labor and do not support them by buying their merchandise. The second thing you can do is educate yourself on the laws. One of the first steps in making society child labor free is to learn the provisions laid down in our Constitution for the protection of children as well as the various laws that stop child labor exploitation and ensure prosecution of those who are offenders. The third thing you could do is be vigilant and report abuse. Be aware of any child abuse or exploitation happening around you. Immediately inform the police at 100 or 911 or call the child helpline at 1098. Lastly, join the Sampa We Can Make a Difference Facebook page to find more ways on how to contribute to your society through volunteering opportunities and ways of funding to put an end to child labor.